for generations.
Dates in the Bible don't quite match the marriage certificate. Uh-oh.
Boy, this is painful. This is all these growing pains. Hi, it's Fisher, your radio root sleuth on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show, the program where we shake your family tree and watch the nuts fall out. We are growing so fast, and I love this. We've just got picked up by two of our latest affiliates. First of all, WDWD Faith Talk, 590 AM in Atlanta, Georgia. So thrilled that you have us on in the Deep South. And also, WOKR, 1310 AM in Canandaigua and Rochester, New York. I'm sure there are a lot of family history stories to come out of both of those places, so thrilled to have them on. And this segment is brought to you by 23andme.com DNA. Boy, have we got a show for you today. I'll tell you that right now. We have an amazing guest on for two segments, starting in about 8 or 9 minutes or so. His name is Jeff Mudgett, and Jeff is the author of a book called Bloodstains. It's about his ancestor, his second great-grandfather, a man that he said made Jack the Ripper look like an amateur. Yes, H.H. Holmes, America's first serial killer, was his ancestor, and you're going to want to hear Jeff's journey to learn about him and many of the stories associated with that. Unbelievable stuff. Hey, we got to give a little love to our Extreme Genes Patrons Club members, too. We had our very first Ask Me Anything live session on YouTube about a week and a half ago. We're having a lot of fun there, giving people early access to the podcasts and bonus podcasts, too, for certain levels of membership. So if you want to sign up, it's easy to do. Just go to the upper right-hand corner of our extremegenes.com website or go to patreon.com/Extreme Genes. Easy stuff. And by the way, of course, you can also sign up for our weekly Genie newsletter. It comes out every Monday morning. Lots of great stuff in there, great stories, and of course, a column from me. We'd love to have you on that. Sign up at extremegenes.com. But right now, we're heading out to Louisville, Kentucky. I always have to say that, David, like I've got a mouthful of marbles. Louisville, Kentucky. He's David Allen Lambert, the chief genealogist of the New England Historic Genealogical Society and AmericanAncestors.org. What are you doing there, sir?
Well, twice a year, the SAR has what we call a leadership conference, and basically we make all the rules and regulations that help out the tens to thousands of SAR members. So I'm on the genealogy committee, the 250th committee, and a couple others. They keep me out of trouble while I'm here in Kentucky.
Well, let us begin with our family Histoire news for this week. And David, what do you have?
Well, I want to offer all of our listeners a chance to finally volunteer for World War I, so to speak. Well, you may have heard, Vish, that the Smithsonian and the Library of Congress are looking for volunteers to actually go through the digital newspapers to identify, get this, comic strips that give the lighter side to World War I.
Yeah, that's because there was such a light side to World War I. So much humor. But you're right. The cartoons were pretty fun. Some of the things were pretty interesting. We actually posted one of them on extremegenes.com. So how do we do this if we want to be part of this project?
Well, I would say the easiest way is go to extremegenes.com and look right to the link, and it will give you all the information that you need. And I know I'm signing up for it. I'm going to look for some Massachusetts papers that need a little bit of laughter repopulated onto the digital age.
Now, they're looking not only for cartoons, but illustrations, I think, and there's some other things that were on there.
Right, and I think that they're also looking to kind of catalog between the lines, because advertisements, believe it or not, had a lot to do with overtones, especially not just buying Liberty bonds, but also for things that were in the common culture back then. I mean, especially with everything going on with the Spanish flu, I'm sure they're looking for those type of advertisements as well. Medical, besides the lighthearted life stateside for our families and the veterans who are over in the trenches.
Sounds like a fun project.
Well, I know you can sign me up, and remember, the Smithsonian wants you.
That's right.
My next story goes across the pond over to Ayrshire, Scotland. I actually was there with my daughter over the summer, but I wish I knew back then that they were going to uncover a house older than Stonehenge. This building, built 4000 BC. They found it while putting in water pipes, and this place is post-hole molds with pottery of a Neolithic time when they went from hunter-gatherer to farming in this part of Scotland. This is the oldest example found in recent years of something this early.
Wow, that's incredible. And this is something that people will be able to see in the not-too-distant future? They're going to make it into a public place?
I would imagine they're going to probably stop a lot of the water pipes going through it. Yes. Yeah. Make it so people can visit. And who knows who else lived by? Because if there was one house, I'm sure it wasn't a lone settlement out in the wilderness.
Right.
Probably there were many. It's probably a community.
Absolutely.
So, our next story is about a person who isn't underground. Do you know that there's still a pensioner from the Civil War?
Yeah, we touched on this, I think, back in April about this lady, Irene, right?
Irene Triplett of North Carolina, who is the ripe old age of 87, but if her dad was alive, he'd be 171.
Wow.
Her dad, Mose Triplett, was both a Confederate and a Union veteran, and because he fought for the Union at the end of the war, he was entitled to a pension. Her mother died in the 1960s, and this daughter has now been recorded by the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs as the last pensioner from the Civil War.
Can you imagine we're still paying out money from the Civil War to people in benefits?
It's amazing to think 152 years later, and it's still being paid. Yep. $73 a month, I think it is?
Yep, it's down to $73 a month and 13 cents.
Oh, can't forget that.
No.
Well, my blogger spotlight is for Becky Campbell, who has a very hip blog. In fact, it's called thehipsterhistorian.com. Becky goes on and talking in this recent blog post about her ancestors named, well, not Becky, but Rebecca. She's gone into talking about ancestors that lived a long time, including a child named Rebecca, who lived only 9 days. So it's a really interesting way of looking at the names in your family. The other thing I'd like to say, of course, is if you're not a member of NEHGS, you can become a free guest member each week. I like to toss out either a database or something special. If you want to join, remember, the checkout code EXTREME will save you $20 on the annual membership.
All right. Thanks so much, David. Good to talk to you. Coming up next, a guy who got into his genealogy and discovered something most of his family didn't want to talk about. America's first serial killer, his second great-grandfather. He's written a book about it. I'll talk to Jeff Mudgett coming up in 3 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show.
Did you know that Family Search Family Tree is available through a powerful new mobile app experience? That's right. Now you can view, edit, and even add information to ancestors in your family tree whenever and wherever you are. You no longer need to wait to get home or make a date with your computer to view or update your family tree. You can add details to your tree when visiting with family or when capturing details from a trip to the cemetery. You can share new family history discoveries from classroom settings. You can even make the most of your time when waiting for doctor appointments or car repairs. Get started today by downloading the free Family Search Family Tree app to your Apple or Android device. Visit familysearch.org/tree app to get the Family Tree app for free. Exploring and expanding your family tree has never been more convenient. Visit familysearch.org/tree app to download the Family Search Family Tree mobile app today.
Hi, Genies. It's Scott Fisher, host of Extreme Genes, with an invitation for you to join our brand spanking new Extreme Genes Patrons Club. Now, the Extreme Genes Patrons Club is where, for as little as $1 a month, Genies everywhere can take advantage of Extreme Genes rewards, such as early access to our latest podcasts, members-only bonus podcasts, acknowledgement on extremegenes.com, and special monthly live online question and answer sessions with well-known family history experts. Catch visits with genealogy stars such as David Allen Lambert, photo detective Maureen Taylor, DNA expert C.C. Moore, and many other experts and storytellers. If you find yourself craving more stories, more ideas for digging up your dead, more inspiration, the Extreme Genes Patrons Club is for you. The rewards start at just $1 a month. Find out more now. Just go to extremegenes.com and click on our special Extreme Genes Patrons Club link at the top right, or go to patreon.com/extremegenes.
Extreme Genes is sponsored in part by 23andMe.com, a personalized genetic service that helps you understand what your 23 pairs of chromosomes, your DNA, say about you. 23andMe.com gives you a snapshot view of your DNA with more than 60 detailed reports on your health, traits, and ancestry, plus tools to explore and compare your DNA with family and friends. 23andMe.com is the first and only genetic service available directly to you that includes reports that meet FDA standards. Here's how it works. Order your DNA kit from 23andMe.com. Provide your saliva sample from home and mail it back to a CLIA-certified lab. Then you'll be notified when your reports are ready online. You'll also receive ongoing reports as new genetic discoveries are made and as 23andMe.com is able to clear new reports through the FDA. See why more than 1 million people are experiencing their genetics with 23andMe.com. Order your DNA kit today at 23andMe.com.
And welcome back to America's Family History Show, Extreme Genes and ExtremeGenes.com. It is Fisher here, your radio root sleuth. This segment of the show is brought to you by LegacyTree.com. And you know, so many of us run into ancestors when we get into the research that we might look at and go, oh boy, that doesn't look like one I want to share with the rest of the family. Jeff Mudgett, the author of Bloodstains, is one of those people, except he's made another decision. He's sharing his story with the world because Jeff is the second great-grandson of America's first serial killer, Herman Webster Mudgett, better known as H.H. Holmes. Jeff, welcome to Extreme Genes. How are you?
Scott, I'm doing great, and I want to thank you so much. When you first contacted me about coming on your show, and I did some research about what you do on the air, my first impression was this show is perfectly matched to my story and the story of my ancestor.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I was thinking about this as you grew up. You know, most people, if there's a bad ancestor back there, the story just doesn't get passed down. Did you hear about this when you were young?
No, I didn't find out about this horrible monster until I was about 40 years old when my grandfather decided to lift the weight off his shoulders. He'd kept it a secret from the entire family, including my grandmother, for his whole life. And at, one dinner party decided, hey, everybody, I need some help on this. We're related to probably the most evil man in American history.
Wow. And had he known him?
I don't think so. I write about it in the book. There's gaps in timelines which I fill in, and I alert my readers that I'm using some speculation to do so. But I never was told by my grandfather that he had actually shaked the man's hand or anything.
All right, let's talk about a little history here about Herman Webster Mudgett, a.k.a. H.H. Holmes. Where did the H.H. Holmes thing come from? Was that his own alias?
Oh, he had 31 of them, Scott. He was fascinated with Sherlock Holmes, and he just thought that one was kind of cute and fit his lifestyle, and he hung with it. As a matter of fact, he even has it engraved on the grave site that we'll get into later that we exhumed earlier this year.
Unbelievable. So when was he born? When did he die? How did he die? And then let's talk about what all happened in between.
Yeah. He was born in 1861. He went to the University of Michigan and received a degree in medicine. The archivist there at Ann Arbor helps me with new material all the time about Holmes. And he was an amazing student, an incredible intellect, high IQ, and pretty much played with his professors. He'd show up the day of a test and pass. They didn't like that.
Of course not.
He paid for his tuition robbing graves and selling the skeletons.
Ooh.
He learned about life insurance fraud, decided that was his career rather than saving children from the flu, and then, went on to build the famous Murder Castle Factory of Death in Chicago before the World's Fair, which so many stories have been written about in movies. There's going to be a new movie, I think, within 2 years. Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio is going to star my great-great-grandfather. And then finally he made a couple of slip-ups and got caught by the law and arrested and was tried for the murder of his assistant, not one of the innocent victims at the castle. And the trial is one of the great Puritan stories in American history. Also, his lawyers quit him. They didn't want to defend him. He was so, they were so disgusted with him.
Sure.
He defended himself, and every major newspaper there reported on it. And some of his tactics, I've been to law school myself. Some of his tactics are still talked about in law schools today, about this amazing orator that he was. Well, he was found guilty, and the judge sentenced him to death. He was imprisoned in Pennsylvania and supposedly executed by hanging.
Okay.
Well, the legends and lores went on.
Right.
And
it's like Batman, isn't it, right?
Oh, it never stops. We use that old term, the rabbit hole. Anything you do with Holmes, it's going to expand into something else.
Wow. Any idea, psychologically, have you talked to some people about what would cause somebody to go in this direction?
Yes, I have, but I'm hesitant to go there, Scott, because this man, his mind was so, and I hate to use the word amazing because then you think of these geniuses like Einstein.
Right. But there
Edison.
are evil geniuses.
He was. And when you try to predict why he did things because of how he thought. I was on a show the other day and they asked me, Jeff, can you imagine if Holmes were alive today, he was arrested, and you were the prosecutor and you had your great-great-grandfather on the witness stand? And I said, I've thought about that a few times, but quite frankly, I don't think I could have kept up with him, Scott, in his intellect and how far he would have been ahead of my questioning him to establish guilt.
Well, so let's go back and talk about some of these crimes. Now, you said he went from the medical field into this idea of life insurance fraud. What did he do?
Well, he'd find a wealthy couple. He'd seduce the wife, befriend both. Sooner or later, the husband would have a mysterious death or disappear. He would be listed as the beneficiary on the policy, and then lo and behold, she would disappear or die as well.
Wow. And how many times did this happen?
Numerous times. I don't know if anyone's ever established the exact number. I do know that he was making serious amounts of money doing this. Holmes liked to dress to the nines. He always had an assistant with him. He had cash in his pocket. He traveled all over. He set aside the normal standards we consider a quote-unquote good life, and he lived it to the max.
Now, was he considered at one time a respectable business person?
He actually had a couple of copyrights. He actually had businesses which weren't based on crime. I think a couple of them were very successful, but he always tended to go back, Scott, to the two things he loved the most, money and women, and mostly money.
Okay. And so, obviously, though, he was married at some point.
He was married 4 times. 4
times. Okay. And you come through which wife?
Number one. And this is your straight paternal line, obviously. So you share 6.25% DNA with this man. And that had to be quite a shock when you learned about it. You say your grandfather talked about it and eased his mind. What did that do for you that night as you went home and pondered this? My initial reaction was to ask my grandmother when the apple pie was going to be served. Our family's a little bit tough like that. My dad's a fighter pilot, flew in Vietnam.
Right.
My grandfather was World War II. I mean, these are tough guys. And that's kind of how our family banter is back and forth. But that night when I got home, all of a sudden, Scott, I started considering, I knew growing up I had idiosyncrasies. I knew I was different than my friends and people around me. Now, that's not to say I never contemplated murdering anyone.
Sure.
But I was different. And all of a sudden, the bell rang. Okay, here's the source, here's the origin. Now let's try to figure out where our life has gone and what I'm doing right now. And quite frankly, Scott, I gave up my practice of law in California. I decided I wanted to find out what was true about this and what was not. My wife supported my journey, and I put aside all that, and it led to my book, giving TED Talks, going on shows like yours, and then a series with history called American Ripper.
Yes. That's another whole issue right there, the American Ripper. Now, this goes back to you looking at the circumstances surrounding Jack the Ripper, the time period, and the methods that he used, and comparing him to your ancestor. And when did the wheels start rolling in your head that maybe he was Jack the Ripper?
I was contacted by an amazing man from Pennsylvania named Mark Potts, who had spent decades trying to prove that Jack the Ripper's identity was H.H. Holmes. And he contacted me and gave me his evidence, and I reacted the same way everyone does when a new author comes out with a theory about who Jack the Ripper is.
Sure. Well, it's kind of like the conspiracy theorists. You can never disprove them, right?
Never. And Scott, I've been threatened with violence over my theory that H.H. Holmes was Jack the Ripper. That's how angry the Ripperologists get sometimes.
How big a crowd is there out there following these people?
Millions.
Really?
Well, I think the first 15 minutes of the last episode of American Ripper set records for history. Is like 2.2 million live viewers. So there is an interest. And you know what? Maybe I should ask you this. Why is society so fascinated with proving 3 to 5 130-year-old murders in Whitechapel, London?
That, is a great question. I think it really comes down to putting the puzzle together. Everybody loves to solve a mystery. I mean, when I was a kid, when I learned to read, it was because of the Hardy Boys. That was my whole shelf, was all the Hardy Boy books, and there were dozens of them. And I loved learning how to put the puzzle together, and that's really kind of carried over into my life today. And don't you think that really is the biggest puzzle of them all?
There's something to that in human nature. I agree with you that ego part of us says,
yes,
wait a minute, we can figure this out. It doesn't matter that for 130 years these geniuses haven't been able to, but we can do it.
Right, because I'm special.
Because I'm special. And so I work with Mark back and forth regarding his evidence, and all of a sudden I said to myself, all right, let's look at this as a prosecutor would at a trial for murder. And when I did that, the evidence is overwhelming. I got to tell you, if Holmes was alive now, I could take the evidence I have of his being Jack the Ripper to a court. I could achieve an arrest warrant. We could have him put in jail and stand trial for the murders of Catherine Eddowes and Elizabeth Stride.
All right, and we're going to find out what that evidence is, Jeff, when we return in 5 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show.
Scientific studies have proven that youth who know even a little bit about their family history perform better academically and have a greater sense of personal confidence and stability. Genealogy is its own incredible superpower that arms our children with super strength. But how do you get your child or grandchild interested in studying their family history? That kind of stuff is just for grandmas, right? Not anymore. ZapTheGrandmaGap.com leaps the generation gap in a single bound. Author Janet Havorka provides you with useful and timely advice on helping the young people in your life become engaged in their own family history. Janet has an entire collection of books to inspire the young and the young at heart in fun, interactive ways. She also offers creative tips and advice on her blog and in her free weekly newsletter. Stop by ZapTheGrandmaGap.com today to sign up for Janet's free email newsletter with 52 weeks of easy tips, free downloads, and order your set of resource books and workbooks. Looking for an easy way to show off your family history and share it with your family? Family Chartmasters offers beautiful custom pedigree art pieces and inexpensive family reunion draft charts in any design or size that fits your needs. With a free consultation at FamilyChartmasters.com, you can get started creating a new family masterpiece. Family Chartmasters has over 11 years of experience in creating and printing family charts. They can print any style of genealogy chart from any genealogy file and can create exactly what you're looking for. You'll work with a specialized and talented consultant whose goal is to make you happy. Decorative charts make fantastic gifts for all occasions. And with Family Chartmasters' option of ordering duplicate charts at half price along with your original purchase at full price, you can afford to give a family heirloom to each member of your family. Contact Family Chartmasters today at FamilyChartmasters.com for your free consultation. Family Chartmasters will give the greatest care to your family history.
Welcome back. It's America's Family History Show, Extreme Genes and ExtremeGenes.com. Fisher here, your radio root sleuth, and this segment of the show is brought to you by MyHeritage.com. We are continuing my conversation with Jeff Mudgett. He is the author of the book Bloodstains. You can get it at bloodstainsthebook.com. It's about his second great-grandfather, a guy by the name of Herman Webster Mudgett, better known as H.H. Holmes, America's first serial killer. And we were just talking about this idea that H.H. Holmes could very well be Jack the Ripper. And Jeff, as a former prosecutor, you're thinking that you could get him to trial on this very issue. What do we know? What's the evidence that connects him to the Jack the Ripper case in London?
Well, and I don't think many people realize this, and I hoped American Ripper opened their eyes, was that there were 13 eyewitnesses to Jack the Ripper in London. And the people at History did an amazing job compiling all that evidence and then presenting it to a profilist who made an image of the Holmes face based on that evidence. And lo and behold, you drop your jaw when you see it on TV, the likeness with the Holmes photo. And then you dig a little deeper, and all of a sudden you're at 5'7", 150 pounds, 25 to 35 years old, expert anatomical knowledge, surgical skills, who was writing letters to his lawyer that he didn't like London because he couldn't find the New York Herald there. And all of a sudden, I started breaking off into Mark's evidence about handwriting comparisons. And Scott, when you conduct trials, criminal trials, and you have handwriting as a piece of evidence, the prosecutor will bring in an expert who says, yes, that's an exact match. The defense will bring in an expert who says, no, that doesn't match. And then the jury has to be, asked to consider both opinions and come up with their own conclusion. Well, I decided I was going to take it to an organization at the University of Buffalo who had created a computer program that, without bias or preconceived notions, would look at handwriting comparisons. And they did so for the FBI and the CIA. And they came back with this number that left me astounded about the similarities between the Dear Boss letter, the famous Jack the Ripper letter, where he says he's going to go out and kill 2 women, and he's going to cut their ears off, and then the Holmes handwriting back to his lawyer. So I started considering, this isn't just something some guy's making up in Pennsylvania. And then history.
Well, wait a minute. What's the number, though, Jeff? What was the percent that they said it was the likelihood?
Oh, they came up with 77%.
That's pretty good.
And they said if I gave them time, they would create a new program based on the font that was being used in the 1800s in England, and their number was going to be way higher than that. So what History decided to do, they hired these 2 famous English linguists to look at the Dear Boss letter, Saucy Jack, and the From Hell letter. And these 2 linguists came up with a conclusion which fit Holmes to a T. It said, this was an American trying to sound English of immense education and an ability in literature which was remarkable. And that's Holmes.
Yeah, that sure describes him, doesn't it? Now, do you have any evidence that he actually went over to England? Not a lot of people traveled internationally in those times.
And that's a great question. And that's one I'm challenged on repeatedly. What we did on the show was Amaryllis, my co-host, who was trained at the CIA in forensics, a wonderful lady who's now one of my best friends. She took over that portion of the show to go check the passenger lists on the liners from New York to London. And about episode 3 or episode 4, she comes up with the H.H. Holmes name on a ship that fits the timelines.
Wow. Are we talking about the timeline that Jack the Ripper was in England?
Yeah, for him to have been able to have committed those 2 murders I talked about, he had to have been there a certain time and then left a certain time after. We know when he was in Chicago, Scott. We know when he returned to Chicago, when he was there again. So that gap in time is what we were playing with. And lo and behold, it fits the murders that were committed in Whitechapel.
That is unbelievable. And I don't know that I really want to get too much into what he did at this castle at the time of the Chicago World's Fair, just for the sake of stomachs here. But how many people is he believed to have murdered in this house?
The number of murders that Holmes committed, Scott, is a huge debate now. in literature and history and in science. Here was a man who was the master at reducing human remains after a murder to zero. And the basement of the castle had an acid bath. It had a furnace, gas lines to the furnace to raise the temperature to reduce the ashes. He had a concrete factory in Chicago where he could dump a body into a block and then take it out into the Chicago River at night. So for anyone to argue they know how many he killed is silly. Those innocents need to be identified, and that's my destiny. That's what I want to do with my life.
All right, Jeff, we are running out of time, which I hate because this is just one of those things we could talk about forever. But I know that you had Holmes exhumed some time back because of the fact that you wanted to know if that was really him buried in the crypt after he was hung for his crimes. What year was he hung, by the way?
Oh, 1895 or 1896.
Somewhere in there. And you went to a judge and said, look, I'm the second great-grandson of this monster. I want to know if that's really him in there. What did the judge say?
Well, he asked me the basis for my question, and I raised the Holmes curse, the story that the New York Times had written about. And the Holmes curse, Scott, is based upon after the alleged execution, anyone who had irritated Holmes in his arrest, at the trial, in his incarceration and execution, was visited after and either died or suffered a terrible misfortune. And it was 30 or 40 people.
Wow.
And one of the newspaper articles, you'll love this, during the trial, they're watching Holmes and they're talking about how he has a list of names that he's writing down as witnesses are testifying against him, and he couldn't be bothered. But he's writing down this list of names. So I told the judge, listen, there's stories about him not being executed, him escaping, and that there was a switch made, and that Holmes is not in the grave as the records state. Let me take a look. We'll use the greatest scientists there are at the University of Pennsylvania. We'll use the laboratories in London who study ancient DNA to the max. We'll prevent this from being a media circus. Let us do this scientifically and professionally, and we'll put it all back when we're done. And the judge finally agreed.
Wow. And you did the test. You got the DNA extracted, and the results were?
Well, that's still in question, Scott. I've got my DNA test results to a number of experts right now. They were only partial, and as you'll be able to explain to our listeners, a partial DNA profile is difficult to establish as an inclusion, an exclusion, or just flat out inconclusive. And while I have beliefs regarding what the DNA says, I'm not expert enough to make a conclusion yet, which would be contrary to anything which was seen on television or which the major media sources reported upon after the show.
Unbelievable. He's Jeff Mudgett. He's the second great-grandson of the serial killer H.H. Holmes. He's been investigating him for years. He's written the book Bloodstains. You can go to bloodstainsthebook.com to get yours. Of course, you can get the e-version of it also through Amazon.com. Jeff, thank you so much for this. And by the way, for people who are wanting to hear more about this story from Jeff, you can catch that bonus podcast we do for our Extreme Genes Patrons Club members. So make sure you get signed up for it and listen to what Jeff has to say. Thanks for joining us.
Scott, it's been a pleasure. I hope you have me on again one day.
I do too, Jeff. And coming up next, we talk to Tom Perry. He's our preservation authority in 3 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show. Well, Genies, my personal family history researcher who sends me new information day and night has sent me some incredible new records and newspaper stories lately. Hi, it's Fisher, and the name of that researcher, by the way, is myheritage.com. It's the hardest working service in genealogy, looking for records of your family 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Yes, even while you're sleeping. How does it work? MyHeritage uses hundreds of algorithms to match your ancestors to over 5 billion records from around the world. world, and with 97% accuracy. That means no more wasting time figuring out whether or not a match really is a match. I hear from listeners all the time who are shocked with how much information is accurately found and then passed along. And now MyHeritage will translate your ancestors' names into English or any other language you like from foreign records. In fact, it works with over 40 languages. No one else does this. Whether you're a beginner or seasoned researcher, you need MyHeritage.com.
Extreme Genes is sponsored in part by 23andMe.com, a personalized genetic service that helps you understand what your 23 pairs of chromosomes, your DNA, say about you. 23andMe.com gives you a snapshot view of your DNA with more than 60 detailed reports on your health, traits, and ancestry, plus tools to explore and compare your DNA with family and friends. 23andMe.com is the first and only genetic service available directly to you that includes reports that meet FDA standards. Here's how it works. Order your DNA kit from 23andMe.com. Provide your saliva sample from home and mail it back to a CLIA-certified lab. Then you'll be notified when your reports are ready online. You'll also receive ongoing reports as new genetic discoveries are made and as 23andMe.com is able to clear new reports through the FDA. See why more than 1 million people are experiencing their genetics with 23andMe.com. Order your DNA kit today at 23andMe.com.
Legacy Tree Genealogist is a proud sponsor of Extreme Genes. Based in Salt Lake City, Utah, near the world's largest family history library, we've been working with genealogists all over the globe since 2004 to track down records, find your ancestors, and the stories that bring your legacy to life. We also analyze DNA test results, help you join lineage societies, and find missing cousins or heirs to property. Legacy Tree is the recommended research partner of MyHeritage.com and is the world's highest client-rated genealogy firm. Call us toll-free at 1-800-818-1476. Call now or register online to get a free estimate. Learn from our free genealogy tips on our blog at legacytree.com/blog. Even experienced researchers can benefit from our proven and experienced staff of specialists who can bring new approaches to old problems. Legacy Tree Genealogists. We do the research. You enjoy the discoveries. legacytree.com.
Welcome back. It's America's Family History Show, Extreme Genes and ExtremeGenes.com. Fisher here, your radio root sleuth. And this segment is brought to you by FamilySearch.org. They're getting ready for Roots Tech already. And right now it's time to talk preservation with our preservation authority, Tom Perry from TMCPlace.com. You can ask him questions, by the way, at AskTom@TMCPlace.com. How are you, Tom? Nice to have you back.
I'm feeling so good. I haven't felt this good in 20 years.
I don't even want to know why. But nonetheless, we got a lot of questions for you today. We're going to start with this one from Lana D. It's a great question. She said, Tom, is it difficult to repair a broken cassette tape? My tape player broke it. I tossed that thing out. I'd like to have the tape repaired if the cost is not very high. Thanks, Lana D.
Okay, let's take this backwards, the last part that she asked. One thing that a lot of people have, which happened to her, she finds an old tape, gets all excited about it, and then she goes, oh, wow, let me go put it in this cassette player I haven't used for 8 years and see what happens.
Oh, boy.
That's not a good idea, because what happens is old machines, whether they're audio cassettes, whether they're video cassettes, anything, you're going to get gunk build up on your heads. In fact, the manufacturers recommend you clean them twice a year. Most people that have ones that are 30 years old, they've never, ever done that. So what happens is you get this gunk on both the heads and on the reels, and so what happens when you put the tape in, it sticks to that, and then it doesn't go where it's supposed to go, and it breaks. So I really recommend you, if you have a tape that's really, really special to you and valuable, you want to take it to some repair place and have them clean it. If you're handy, it's an easy thing to do. Get me on Facebook or send me a tweet, and I'm more than happy to help you with that, because you can do it with Q-tips and like 95% isopropyl alcohol and clean it.
Yeah,
but
we used to do that in the radio business all the time. Cart heads.
Oh, yeah, every day. Every day we clean up stuff.
Yep.
And so these people that have VCRs that are even a year old are going to have problems like that. And we get tapes that are damaged, and then the worst thing that's worse than your tape damage is trying to fix it yourself if you don't know what you're doing. We have people that bring tapes in that they've wrapped Scotch tape around it, and so now it's 4 times thicker. And sometimes they think, oh, if I don't tell them, everything will be fine. And it causes all kinds of problems. So what you need to do is be honest with whoever you're taking it to and say, hey, I tried to fix this myself, sorry. Or if you haven't already tried to do that, take it to somebody that knows how to fix it or learn how to fix it properly yourself, because you can bugger up your machine, you can bugger up the place you take it to, their machine, and it can cause all kinds of problems, because ignorance is not bliss in this sense.
Right. Now, how would you do it yourself, though, to put a splice on that? I've had this happen myself before. I had an interview with my grandfather, who was born in 1886. The tape was from 1974, and it broke, and I was horrified because I hadn't digitized it yet. That was still a new process, and I remember taking it to you, and you fixed it for me eventually, and then we were able to digitize it. How did you do that?
Okay, basically what you have to do is if both ends are exposed, it's not that hard to do. If one of the ends has gone in, that's when it causes all kinds of problems, because if you don't take the cassette apart just properly, you could have springs fall off, and not only would it not work properly, you might get those caught inside the tape and cause all kinds of problems and lose your entire tape. So if it's a kind of cassette that doesn't have screws, don't even try to fix it yourself. No matter how good you are, you want to take it to a professional that knows how to take the cassette apart, put it in a new shell with screws, and splice it back together. So to your question, if both ends are hanging out, you can buy tape. Just go on to Amazon or go on to Google and type in splicing tape, splice tape, different things like that, and you'll find some companies that sell it. And you can get it for usually less than $20. And then they make ones for audio cassettes, they make ones for reel-to-reel, they make ones for video cassettes, and sometimes you can either buy a little platen that they will set the tape in, show you how to do it and everything.
All right, thanks, Tom. Thanks, Lana, by the way. And we have another question coming up from New York from Andrew, coming up in 3 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show.
Looking for an easy way to show off your family history and share it with your family? Family Chart Masters offers beautiful custom pedigree art pieces and inexpensive family reunion draft charts in any design or size that fits your needs. With a free consultation at FamilyChartMasters.com, you can get started creating a new family masterpiece. Family Chart Masters has over 11 years of experience in creating and printing family charts. They can print any style of genealogy chart from any genealogy file and can create exactly what you're looking for. You'll work with a specialized and talented consultant whose goal is to make you happy. Decorative charts make fantastic gifts for all occasions. And with Family Chart Masters' option of ordering duplicate charts at half price along with your original purchase at full price, you can afford to give a family heirloom to each member of your family. Contact Family Chart Masters today at FamilyChartMasters.com for your free consultation. Family Chart Masters will give the greatest care to your family history.
When was the last time you heard your grandmother's voice or saw your family enjoying life back in the 1950s or 60s? If the reason is you haven't known what to do with your old recordings, videos, and films, here's your answer. The Multimedia Center in Salt Lake City.
We brought in a video project to the Multimedia Center, and overnight they duplicated it to DVD so we could meet our deadline.
The Multimedia Center, 2870 East, 3300 South, Salt Lake City. Open Monday through Friday, 10 to 6. Call 801-483-1717 or go to transferduplication.com.
Genies, it's Fisher with exciting news. The Weekly Genie, the official newsletter of Extreme Genes, is here. It's your Monday morning briefing on what's happening in the world of genealogy and family history and on Extreme Genes. Get all the details of jaw-dropping stories of discovery and keep up with the latest techniques in family history research. Get to know more about your favorite Extreme Genes personalities, and it's free. Sign up for the Weekly Genie now at extremegenes.com or the Extreme Genes Facebook page. And when you do, you'll receive David Allen Lambert's top 10 tips for beginning genealogists from the chief genealogist of the New England Historic Genealogical Society. Sign up today for the Weekly Genie. All right, we are back. It's our final segment of Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show. We're talking with Tom Perry, our preservation authority from tmcplace.com. And boy, we've been getting a lot of questions here, Tom. Let's take this one from Andrew. He emails us, Tom, heard you on Extreme Genes. I have a number of film reels that I'd like to transfer to digital. I'm in New York, and I like the fact that you scan each frame. Does that mean that you're also able to capture the full height of each frame? I know that with 8mm projectors, you had a lever that you would use to frame the image, basically selecting what portion vertically would be projected. Fill me in. Thanks so much, Andrew.
You know, that's an awesome question. We haven't really talked about this a lot in the past because people need to understand with 8mm film, it was made for basically a normal television back in the day, the old CRT tubes that were like 4x3 format. So it's fine. You saw everything. But then when they came out with Super 8, they didn't upgrade the televisions, but they made Super 8 a little bit wider, so it's more like 16:9 like you'd see in a theater.
Right.
But people just shot the film, and when they went and had it transferred to VHS in the day, they just cut off the edges and made it 4x3, and nobody was any the wiser. But now with today's technology, if you have a true scanner where you really scan it at real time, you have all kinds of options. What we generally do, we actually cut a little bit inside the frame so you don't see the black, because most people don't want to see that. They just want to see their picture. So it's still just cropped a teeny bit. However, if somebody like Andrew says, hey, I want edge to edge, what we can do, not only can we move the frame around, we can totally open the frame as large as you want it to be. When you get your file back to edit on your Mac or your PC, you're going to be able to actually even see the holes.
Wow, that's incredible. Do you want to see the holes, though? That's the question. I mean, it's great to know that you're getting every bit of each frame, but isn't that kind of distracting?
Well, it depends. For most people, yes, that's why we just kind of go within the frame a little bit. But some people that are professional videographers or doing things for other clients, or they're really into restoration and they love Final Cuts Pro and these different programs, Premiere and such, they want to have the very best that they can start with. And when they're doing their editing, it's a really easy process once they're done editing to go in and bring the edge to edge back into where they want it when they finalize their DVD. So it's not a hard thing to do. So those people want to make sure they don't miss anything. And the thing is, if somebody was taking pictures of a large group and your aunt or your grandmother or whoever was important to you, if she was right at the edge of the frame and they transferred in the old days to VHS, she's not even in the picture.
Right.
Where now, where we go edge to edge, you can get everybody, and you can even go in and focus just in on her and expand hers, like zoom in on her, and then you've got a good picture of her. So there's a lot of advantages to doing edge to edge. However, if it's going to be distracting, like you mentioned, you might not want it. We have some people that we do a run both ways, but it's not that hard to edit that if you use Premiere or Final Cuts Pro and even iMovie.
Okay, now I'm thinking, though, that there must be places in New York that Andrew could take his material to. Yes, this is pretty common?
I would check around and ask, because you would think so, but you want to make sure you ask the correct questions. For instance, do you really scan? Do you scan in real time? And if they say yes, say, okay, I want you to scan edge to edge so I can actually see the holes of the frame. Plus, I want JPEGs of every frame so I can make photo prints from it. And if they go, huh? Or they pause, or they say, oh, well, that's not available. Do not go there, because they don't really scan. They've got something that they're doing that they're calling scanning.
All right. So if you want to ask Tom a question, you can do that easily. Just email him at asktom@tmcplace.com, or you can tweet him at AskTomP. Thanks so much, Tom. Always good stuff. And we've got more questions coming up for next week. Talk to you then.
Awesome. My pleasure.
Hey, that's a wrap on the show this week. And thanks so much to my guests, especially Jeff Mudgett, who came on and talked about his great-great-grandfather, America's first serial killer, and what he is doing to uncover the damage that this man did. And the story is just incredible. If you missed it, catch the podcast. And if you want to catch the podcast earlier than anybody else, sign up for our Extreme Genes Patrons Club. You can do that at extremegenes.com. Click on the Patrons Club button, or go to patreon.com/Extreme Genes. Talk to you next week. And remember, as far as everyone knows, we're a nice, normal family. Hey, Genies, before we go, I got to give a shout out to our latest members of our Extreme Genes Patrons Club. You can sign up at patreon.com/extremegenes or just click on the Patron Club link at extremegenes.com. And there's all kinds of rewards and benefits, including early access to the podcast, your name plugged, like right here, bonus podcast commercial free throughout the month, a couple of those. Plus, we do a monthly Ask Me Anything session that you can be a part of. So welcome to Rochelle Hale, Marianne Suzuki, Deborah Wagner, Amber Ferdig, and Christine Charbonneau. Get signed up today. We'd love to have you be part of our community. It's the Extreme Genes Patrons Club.